Welcome to Ladies in Law, where real-world advice meets professional wisdom and empowerment in realms of law and business. Your hosts, Lisa Goucher, Dawn Smith, and Kellye Raymond, bring you innovative strategies, practical guidance, and inspirational stories. Join us as we inspire and support women to thrive in traditionally male-dominated fields. We're here to promote inclusivity and provide practical advice for success. Hi, Lisa here today with Dawn, Kellye, and we have a guest, one of my favorite law firms in Dallas. Rachel Gross is here with Dobbs, but it's Dean, Omar, Branham, and Shirley. So excited to have you here today, Rachel. Thank you for making the trip across town. All right, we are going to talk about work-life balance. She is a busy plaintiff attorney, traveling, doing all the things. She actually took a vacation. So Rachel, come on, weigh in. How are you doing it or not doing it?
Well,
just say it. It's bullshit, right?
Work-life balance is bullshit. I mean, you just kind of, I think it's a constant evolving struggle, right? There are some months where you just wake up and you're like, this is going to be the month I take a vacation. I'm going to do it. I'm going to make it happen. And then there are some months where you're just like, it's not going to happen. I'm just not sleeping. I'm just working. And so you just kind of have to make your peace with the fact that it changes a little bit. It ebbs and flows. I mean, it flows a lot, but it does. You just have to make, I'm still terrible at it, but I've just kind of figured out that I just kind of have to make the choice that I'm going to take these 10 days. I'm going to take these 2 weeks. I have a younger sister who has a very tight schedule because she's a doctor. And so like when we travel together, we can only really travel within a certain time frame, which has actually been very helpful for me because she will force me to be like, this is when we're going. So you have no choice. And actually, I take instruction well. So it works for me.
The real question is, were you actually able to relax on your vacation?
The first couple of days, it was a struggle. I was telling you guys before, I actually didn't bring my laptop on this vacation, which I think was a first.
No.
It was a first.
Scary.
It was a first.
Scary.
It was a first. And the first couple of days, I had an out of office up on my email, but the first couple of days, every time I would feel my phone vibrate, I would like instinctively reach for my email, and it took people being like, put your phone away. But after a couple of days, I kind of settled in, and I was in Italy, so you have some wine, and then you have some more wine, and then you just kind of forget about your cell phone. So the first couple of days were definitely an adjustment, just being worried that I was going to miss something. But after a while, it wasn't actually so bad. So
well, you have to like really love what you're doing and taking ownership, because I'm just curious, do you feel like you're sacrificing anything? Like by not
unplugging or
yes,
if the flow is much more than the ebb?
Exactly.
Me personally, yes. I mean, I'm sure everybody's different. Me personally, I am the definition of suffering future pain. So I you know what I mean? So I go away for 10 days and I don't check my email, but then my idle brain goes to, God, what am I going to come back to? Not even just am I going to come back to a really full inbox, but you know, some defense attorney has seen that I have an out of office up, so he or she
pulls all kinds of crap,
causes a ruckus while I'm gone, right?
Yes.
And then I have to come back and fix it. And so it's definitely hard for me personally to completely mentally disconnect from it. But then I just kind of, like I said, I just kind of get to a point where I'm like, well, I'm here and there's nothing I can do about it. So
that's the real balance, I think. It's being able to say, okay, I need a little bit of time to myself in order to do my job well and to kind of refresh and recharge. But if I take too much time, then I'm creating a big mess for myself when I come back, and that's
screwing myself, right, when I come back, which is real. It's a real concern.
So I've got to ask you, we've talked about this a ton on the podcast, I feel like, and I kind of chalk it up to a little bit younger of a generation really wanting the work-life balance as if it's like inherent in the job description.
Like you deserve it.
Right. And so I'm curious, being at a big plaintiff's firm, do you see that? I've got a friend who's a managing attorney at a big firm here in town, and she says she has baby associates saying like, oh, I'm not answering emails after 6, and I'm creating healthy boundaries. What does that look like? Do you have it? Have you seen that in your firm or?
My firm is pretty. No, not at my firm. We're all pretty on the ball. I mean, we all in our own ways try to build.
Well, you're taking on J&J, so you guys have your work cut out for you.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll get to that. I have friends who are either plaintiffs or defense attorneys, candidly, and they're, it's a little bit of a, I am a, what do I call it? Not an elder millennial, but like a geriatric millennial.
Yeah,
so
yeah. We're in the same boat.
Right? So I still, and my father's a plaintiff's attorney too, so I was
You've got that good work ethic.
It's like in my blood to just constantly be attached to my email. So, but I have seen people say, I'm going to set these boundaries and, they can email me past 8:00, but there's nothing I can do about it. I almost envy the people who can do that because sometimes I'll talk a big game and I'll say that. Like if they email me past 9 p.m., I'm not going to answer, but I can never, unless I physically remove myself from the country. It is impossible for me. But I do see some people who do that and I applaud them. God bless. But I just don't know I don't know how to do that.
Well, and is that advisable, right? Like if you're a young lawyer and you're trying to make your way at an important firm doing important things, I mean, don't you have to make a choice? Like if you're going to be a lawyer and you're a young lawyer and you're trying to make a difference, don't you have to make a choice about that? Or
I think so. It's probably a little bit of a hot take, but if you're just getting started, I think there's an internal decision you have to make where you have to be like, am I going to be just one of the group and maybe I'll be towards the tippy top of the group, but am I just gonna be one of the group or do I really want to excel? Do I want to be the one
you can't have
it both ways? Do I want to be the one that the bosses are going to go to when they know it needs to be done or it needs to be done right? And if you want to fall into the latter, then when you're young and you really don't know anything and you're just struggling for mentorship or opportunity or wherever just to sort of flex and spread your wings a little bit, I think you kind of need to be on call.
all times.
Sort of. I mean, there's a point where it's like enough is enough. If it's midnight, I'm going to sleep, right? But when you're a young lawyer and you're just getting started, if your boss emails you at 8:00 and is like, I really need your help with this, if you want to excel and be one of the best, you want to be the one that answers your boss's email at 8 p.m., right? You just do, because that's how you build that rapport within the organization, at least in my experience. And some people don't want to do that, and that's totally fine. Some people are just like, at 8 p.m., I'm not answering my email, and that's great. But then somebody else might be the one to answer. And then when you're older and you get a little bit more what I call sort of swag, like you can get away with being like, I'll get to it tomorrow. But when you're young and you're coming up and you're trying to make your way in the world, I think to a certain extent you should probably be on call most of the time. But if that's what you want.
Or open a flower shop.
Yeah. There are some people who are totally fine. Just like, my firm isn't this big, but I would think like a defense firm or something, if you've got like a baby lawyer class of 30, right? There's going to be like a very large, it's just sort of like evolution, right? There's going to be like that very large middle pack. And if you're okay with being in the middle pack, then that's fine. But if
saying, if you're okay with being average, don't respond.
Yeah. You can be like a little bit better than average, but it's more so about what do you want your reputation to be at the firm? Exactly. Do you want to be not necessarily average, but do you want to be somebody that the partners or the bosses go to when they need somebody steady, somebody reliable, somebody that they know can get it done, somebody that hopefully can win? Like, all these, it just depends on what you want to be known for at your firm.
That way you get more opportunities.
Yeah.
Right?
In my experience. Yeah.
And as a plaintiff's lawyer, that is
everything.
Yeah.
Right.
The opportunity. Yeah. Right.
That's your career. So especially when you're a plaintiff's firm, it's not, I've never worked at a defense firm. It's just not.
Let's go, sister.
Not how I'm wired. I can't do it. I can't. Every now and then I'm like, maybe. No, I can't do it. But I have a lot of friends who do work at the defense type firms, and from what I can tell, and this could be completely wrong and just me judging, which happens.
We're here for that too.
We judge.
There's more structure, right? At a defense firm, like the pay is structured, the bonuses are structured. It's very like
You're sleeping in 6-minute increments.
yeah, you bill, you sleep, you go to the bathroom. Like everything is done in 6 or. I mean, my brother's a defense attorney. Like I could not. So when you're in a plaintiff's firm, it's a little bit more subjective how you move through the world in your firm. But yeah, I mean, if you want to get ahead at your firm, at a plaintiff's firm in particular, in my experience, the opportunities are how you do that, right? It's the opportunities to prove yourself, whether it's in a courtroom or in a deposition or just researching something for a partner or researching something for a coworker who just doesn't have the time to do it because they're doing something else, whatever.
Being a team player.
Yeah. It's the only way to, particularly when you're dealing with someone like J&J, it's really the only way to survive.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, taking on, for folks that aren't aware, Johnson & Johnson makes bad products. They know they make bad products.
They don't care, particularly products for women.
They try to hide the fact that they know that they make bad products.
And there are jury trials that support that.
Yeah.
Yes, jury verdicts that support that.
So what is that? I mean, obviously you guys are working really hard to hold J&J accountable, but tell us about what that work is like and how. I mean, it's hugely important, right? But tell some of our audience that may not know what that work is like.
It's this weird dichotomy of sometimes you feel like it completely consumes you because it's the kind of work. I mean, the firm I was at before my current firm, I did asbestos, I did mesothelioma, what I'm doing now, but I also did the transvaginal mesh work, which is, I think, largely wrapped up. But J&J, a subsidiary of J&J, was a defendant there too. And in my experience working on these cases, there's no way to not get completely emotionally involved in it. Like there's just not. Whether you hate your client, which I never do, I always have the best clients, but even if you didn't like your client, it just gives me the ick. Like, I hate to say that, but it's just, and because I have sort of the unique perspective that I worked on the transvaginal mesh stuff before too, it also feels like they sort of hate women. And I don't, right? Because I mean, the trial I had in South Carolina in August was for a man, but
Was that talc or what?
It was okay. Johnson & Johnson. I mean, it was talc, yeah. And the trial was against Johnson & Johnson. And I mean, because mesothelioma is mesothelioma. You breathe it. You know, a lot of women get the kind from putting it in their underwear and like powdering their babies. Because back sort of with the latency of the disease now, like you're seeing the women who were primarily raising the kids. So like you get a lot of the diaper exposure, but it just really seems like they don't like women. So it's completely impossible in my experience to not get consumed by it when you're working on it, whether it's you're thinking about, and the plaintiffs are all so young now. It's not like with what I used to do when I first started, you know, my average client was 70s, 80s, sort of like a guy who worked with a bunch of pipe insulation, and that doesn't, but they were 70 or 80 versus now where, I mean, I had a trial last year where my client was 35 and she had 3 kids under the age of 5. And, you know, like my trial in August was one of my older clients and he's 53. So it's just sort of shifted the whole dynamic of what I do. And I don't know how you don't get completely emotionally involved when your client is basically your age. Like it's just impossible. So that adds the extra layer of it's a lot of work. And even if you've got three of us at a trial, J&J has
an army.
Well, the army in the courtroom, and then God knows what they have back at the hotel or they have back at their law firm headquarters or whatever. But you're always outnumbered and outgunned, and It's a lot.
You needed that vacation.
Yeah, I did. I really did. I really, really did. It was time.
So how did you get to the point to where you were able to go to trial? Like, how did you earn that
I
trust?
thought you were going to ask to where you could take a vacation.
I booked that vacation months in advance. I was like, I'm going. It's on the calendar. Don't ask. Don't pretend you don't see it. Like, it's there.
It's there. It's been
there.
there.
It's happening. Don't try and guilt me. It's going.
You got to do that. No.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no,
let's
and
talk
they were
about
great.
trial.
They were great about it. They were great about it.
And how did you work your way up to get that? I mean, because we have young lawyers working for us, and I was a young lawyer at some point, not so young anymore. But, if you could talk to us a little bit about the steps that you took to kind of work your way up in this very prestigious plaintiff's law firm to where you actually could go to trial and take witnesses and do all the great stuff it is to be a trial lawyer.
I know what works best for me. And what has worked best for me throughout my career has been to just never shut the hell up. Like, never stop talking about what you want, never stop pushing people, even when the partners are annoyed with you or think you're being too demanding or asking for something that you're not ready for or whatever the sentiment. What's worked for me is to just keep pushing and just, when I was a younger lawyer, if I got taken to trial as a third chair who was essentially supposed to watch, figuring out ways to insert yourself, even if the lawyer trying the case thinks you're the most annoying person on the planet, because that's the only way they're going to see what you can do. It is.
So give us an example.
Oh God.
Yeah, give us an example. Like, how did
Well,
you?
while you're thinking of an example, can I just say, I think that is so great to hear, because especially a lot of the young lawyers that I have worked with, a lot of them are afraid of trial. And trial is a scary thing, but I find that, and unfortunately, I think women tend to be a little bit more timid. So younger women aren't putting themselves in the position to where, you're up, it's your turn, let's do something. I think you have to really, really put yourself in that position.
aggressive.
It's not
You
going to
have
just
to
come, right?
Yeah, it's not just going to come. You have to be aggressive. You have to be assertive, which as women is super difficult. I mean, people tease me because I'm from New York, so I have a natural.
Say, are you Italian?
I get that vibe a lot. I get that question a lot. I have a naturally more aggressive, assertive personality, and it's cut both ways for me throughout my career.
Sure.
Like, it works great for some people. Some people absolutely hate it, particularly as a woman. I'm lucky in that I think because I grew up with a dad that's a plaintiff's attorney, I knew real early what I wanted to do, which was trial work. I knew real early that my personality, my skill set was just not suited for sitting behind a desk, which is great for a lot of people. It's just not great for me. And so I knew pretty early in my career that this is what I wanted. And at first, and it's still hard for me to do things as a woman, like to talk about money with your employer. I mean, to do things like I even just flinched when I said it out loud. Like it's hard, particularly as women, to just own it. Just put yourself out there. And if somebody doesn't like it, you just, oh, well, like it's what's best for me. It was harder as a younger attorney because I knew what I wanted, but you get, probably particularly as women as well, a little bit of that imposter syndrome when you're right out of law school, where you're
I
like,
think we've had a whole episode.
we did,
Right?
right?
It's a
like,
real
it's just,
thing.
I still struggle with it. Where I'm
Same,
like, I
girl.
don't like. Why am I doing that? Why are they letting me do this? This podcast. Like, why? but I just knew I was lucky enough that I knew really young in my career. I think if you are coming out of law school, it's probably more common to not know what you want. I think most of my friends when I was a younger lawyer knew what they didn't want more than what they did want, right? Like when I got out of law school, I remember people asking what kind of law I wanted to practice, and I had no clue. I just knew I didn't want to do family law. That was all I knew.
Nobody ever wants to do
because
family
it's so
law.
dramatic. Like I can't. And I kind of fell into mesothelioma because they don't really talk about that in law school. It's sort of,
Nobody even knows how to pronounce it.
Everybody, when it was mentioned in law school for me, it was sort of people being like, is asbestos still a thing? Because they've been saying year after year, like it's going to be dead by, and
Well, it's incredible that really
Right.
society doesn't realize that it is still very much a thing.
I think talc litigation, and particularly the Johnson and Johnson stuff, has really raised public awareness of mesothelioma in a way that did not exist, at least when I first came out of law school, which was just, I mean, I've been licensed just under 11 years. So it hasn't been all that long since I've come out. And now it's so amazing to me how many of my friends, you know, when I would tell my friends what I do, like they knew I would go to trials with these massive verdicts, but they didn't really get it. Like, not that they didn't get it, but it was just like, we thought asbestos was done or whatever. But now that I think in particular, the Johnson & Johnson litigation has raised the public awareness so much that mesothelioma is still really a thing. And asbestos can be in places the place you would least expect it, right? Which is baby powder and makeup. I think it is, you know, I'll go to parties or hang out with friends, and they like, especially my girlfriends, want to, you know, they'll send me photos of their makeup and be like,
tell us what brands not to use.
Yeah, can I keep the, or I'll get questions like what brands are actually clean, right? Like there's some that say clean, but are they really clean? And some are not, right? Like they'll say clean, but the number one ingredient is still talc. So it's kind of funny how it's evolved. People just in my everyday life now sort of having more of a general understanding of what I do compared to before.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's weird to get photos of makeup from your friends.
Yeah.
But
So more women. Men don't really wear makeup that much.
it has, I mean, yeah, it's definitely been, I mean, the men in my life have sort of become more aware of it than they were before, but it's really the women who have not only become aware of it, but, and I don't know if it's that they're more emotionally invested in it, but they're the ones that are like, what else is it in? Is it like, is my hair dye going to be a problem? Like, not that there's asbestos in that, but I can see my friends and people around me starting to think more about
The products they're
using in their home, right?
Yes.
On their kids, you know, all the PFA stuff.
They're like
with
afraid of everything.
Yeah, they're afraid of
Yeah,
everything,
for
right?
good reason.
Let's move to Montana.
Yeah.
Live out in the woods.
There's probably something bad out there.
Spoken like a true plaintiff's lawyer. Like you
We'll
can find that
something,
anywhere.
yeah. But yeah, it's definitely a very different world in what I do compared to what I did like a decade ago.
I mean, you were talking about being like super emotionally invested in these cases, right? Like just, we do really hard things as plaintiffs lawyers because, and we've talked about secondary trauma, and if you care a lot like you do about what you do, how do you deal with that on a daily basis? Like how do you kind of either compartmentalize or somehow shift that emotion into something else so that it fuels you?
And that it doesn't break you.
Yes.
I think compartmentalizing is critical. I'm not the best at it. I still am working on different ways to not just compartmentalize, but just shut my brain off for an hour, whether it's watching a terrible reality TV show and putting my phone on Do Not Disturb. I got a Peloton during COVID like everybody else, whether it's like going on my bike for 40 minutes, being like, I'm not, whether it's just like taking a bath. I don't know. Just for me, the best way to compartmentalize is to be doing something, because I'm the kind of person where if I'm not, even if it's something stupid, my idle mind will just, I just can't. And I think that's something special to women that we just never, our brains never stop thinking. So I have to keep myself busy to compartmentalize. But it's really hard. It's really, really hard because not only, I mean, particularly with what I do, not only are you dealing with literal life and death, but it's also the struggle of, God, if I go to trial and we lose and this family has to watch us lose, right? Or like a family who's like, we really want money for Christmas. Can you help us get a settlement before? I mean, it's just constant struggle of balancing not only the fact that and sometimes you get a case where the person who's sick with cancer is still alive. And so sometimes you're literally with these families, like as they're watching their loved one die. And if you don't figure out a way, what works best for you to shut your brain off, whether it's exercising, whether it's watching trash TV, whether it's calling your mom for an hour, whether it's going shopping at Target, which I do.
Target, if you want to be a sponsor, just let us know.
If they put a bar in Target, I would be so screwed.
Well, I think that's really the work-life balance, right? It's not checking your emails after 8. It's not working on a Saturday. It is finding little moments. And some days it's just a couple of minutes, but finding little moments of what can I do to distract my brain from all the heavy shit that I'm having to deal with, so that I can recharge and do those important things that you're doing.
Yeah, we were talking initially about the vacation, and yeah, that's great. However,
those are few and far between.
Yes, so you have to find something to protect your peace.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. And it sounds like you have, between the reality or the Peloton and trying to be mindful.
If there was a bar in Target, I would be absolutely bankrupt, because I would be like, I would just like start emotionally shopping and drinking. It would be a disaster. I mean, I don't know if I have figured out the secret. You know, I still struggle with the fact that there are some people in my life who don't understand why I work so much, right? Like sometimes you have to deal with things like family being upset if you can't be around. And at a certain point you have to be like,
Talk to us about that. Talk to us about that, because I know a lot of us struggle with that. Like, you know, because you're just, you know, you've got to do that because like lives matter, you know? I mean, this thing has to be done right now.
It's hard, right? It's hard. And, you know, the biggest struggle that I have with is that, but also there's this really weird period where you come back from a trial, right? Where the only way I know how to describe it is everything is a conspiracy theory all the time, right? Because you're constantly trying to think what, especially with some super sophisticated defendant like Johnson & Johnson, you're constantly trying to figure out what they're going to do next. Like you're trying to make sure that you stay on top of everything all the time, or you're preparing for your expert tomorrow, or if I open on this topic, are they going to open on this topic? Or if I close here, and then you have to worry about your second part of your closing. I mean, there's this really strange period, and I have not figured this out yet. And hopefully, as I continue to do this more in my career, I will master the art of this, because I think it is an art of you come back from trial and you just want to be left alone, right? It's the notion of coming back from a trial and then the day after I get back, having to go even see my parents. I can't do it.
That's because you lay everything emotionally out on the table.
Right.
You have
And
nothing
I'm just,
you have-
I
yeah,
have
you've got nothing
like
left.
I'm absolutely gassed, right? Like just emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically, like all the things, you're just spent. And you just want, and it's sad, right? What you've like, it's, if you win, it's great, but it's also sad because you know that you have to, you know, your clients get really excited that they won, but you also know that the defendant's going to waste 2 or 3 years appealing something, and then it's just going to be more
like
time
you've just
before
played
this
Russian
sad
roulette.
100%, like
You
playing
survived.
You're just like, I survived phase 1, right? And then you have to deal with preparing your clients for the fact that verdicts are very exciting, but verdicts
Don't mean
necessarily
anything.
mean
It's
anything
just
sometimes.
a jury doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't actually mean that J&J pulls out their checkbook. You just made me think of Charla Aldous, one of the best trial lawyers in the
100%.
entire country.
Yeah.
She won a case against Greyhound a couple of years ago. Great verdict. And we were talking after that, and she said, you know, I go home and I cry.
Yeah.
And she won, and it was great, but it didn't change the fact that this family had lost their child.
You have to let it out.
And all of, you know, it was really sad.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just do. You just have to let it out.
You just have to let it out. I saw Wicked a couple days ago. It was amazing. But I find myself, my friends always tease me growing up because I'm just not a big crier. I should say, asterisk, I used to not be a big crier. And then somewhere along the line, I started trying more of these cases. And I feel like now everything makes me cry at specific points in time, especially if I'm just fresh out of trial. Like if I come back from trial the week or two after trial, I could watch some terrible TV show from when I was a kid that I've seen 1,000 times. And I'll cry rewatching Gossip Girl for the 9 millionth time. I mean, it's just because you have to like
let it out.
Let it
Yeah.
out. Like 2 days ago, I went to see Wicked, and there was like a really sweet scene which was emotional, but I was like sitting in the movie theater crying.
bawling.
Like I just like I could
That's
not
your
get
body.
control.
Like, listen, I let you
like
get through trial.
Yeah, like I have to let it out. And I think that's really, if you don't, it's hard for some people to understand, especially people who are really close to you and just want you around, especially when you don't have a lot of time to be around, right? Like your free time, as free as it can be, is precious. And so people want you around. But then in some of your free time, you're like, I don't want to be around. I just want to be
Just to be
in my home, in my space. Like I just want to sit with my cat or my dog on the couch and not think. Like I just don't. And that's really hard for some people to understand. I have not mastered it. I mean, I've tried to, I don't want to say set boundaries because I'm not great at it, but I've tried to be more communicative with people in my
trying
life.
to explain.
Right?
I've
I've tried to be like, if I disappear for a month, or, you know, I remember at the beginning of this year talking to my family being like, this year's gonna suck, right? Like I'm gonna be in a lot of these Johnson & Johnson trials. And if I'm not gonna be in trial, I'm gonna be doing 1,000 depositions in these Johnson & Johnson cases. I'm probably not just gonna be around that much. It's not intentional. It's not to hurt anybody. It's just, I have to do this.
Helping manage, managing the expectation.
I try to, but
it still makes it hard.
Yeah.
Right. But sometimes you don't, even like the dinner and drinks with girlfriends, that's fun. And sometimes you're just like, I just want to
just don't want to go.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm like,
All right, Rachel. So like you've done a lot in 11 years. I mean, I know there's a lot of listeners that we have that tune in that would love to climb the ladder as quickly as you have. And so I just want to say that huge congratulations for where you are now. But now, like, I'm really curious because we're at the end of the year and it's a new year coming. So what is the next chapter? Have you thought about that? Like, what's the next
about
chapter?
that all the time. I can't stop. Like, I went to Italy for 10 days and was like, what am I going to do when I get back? I mean, it's the end of the year. What does it mean for what is next year? I mean, I'm just wired that way. I mean, I hope there's more trials in my future, certainly.
Spoken
I
like a true plaintiff
I hope
lawyer.
some defendant just really doesn't want to settle. You know, because I'm sort of in this weird period of my career, right? There's the phase of being a lawyer where you're fresh out of law school and you know nothing, and everything scares you, and you're just everybody. I remember being a young lawyer and being friends with people who've been practicing for a while, and they were like, "There's a reason nobody wants to hire baby lawyers," and I will be like, "That's so mean. Everybody has to get their start somewhere." And now that I've been doing it, I'm like, I get it.
5 years
I
experience
completely
minimum.
Get it.
That's because they don't even know what they don't know.
They don't know what they don't know.
even
Well,
what
everybody
they
gets out of law school super hungry, and they're like, let's go. And
Well,
you're
you
like,
get out of
"You
law
need
school and
to
you think you know everything.
Right, and you know absolutely nothing. You know how to hopefully pass the bar exam, and that's it. So that's sort of the first phase. And then there's this phase where you've been doing it for a while and you start getting a little bit more confident, right? And you're like, I want to do more and more. And then that sort of hunger, getting your feet under you, just never really stops, right? And so for me, I think where I'm at is probably not just trials, but doing more, right? Doing more. There's always something more to be done in the trials, right? Like in my South Carolina trial, I did my very first opening statement of all time against Johnson & Johnson. I had done part of an opening before, but this was the first time I had done like the whole kit and caboodle, which was
that's awesome.
So scary.
Yeah.
But so I think for me, something as simple as like doing an opening statement a couple more times, so that for me, it's
First of all, not simple.
not simple at all. Oh my God, it's absolutely terrifying. And I could do it 1,000 times and I would still absolutely be terrified. And I'm convinced if you're not terrified, you don't care about your job.
No,
That's right.
That's right.
You just
That's
don't.
right.
But getting a little bit more comfort to it, or at least knowing that I can do it, right? Because I think the first time you do anything, particularly in trial, you just have to do it once or twice to know that you can do it. Right. And even if you fall on your face a couple times, like it's not going to be the end of the world and you'll get to a place where you can kind of laugh at yourself. I'm still working on that.
It's Johnson & Johnson. It could be the end of the world. No, I'm just kidding.
It feels like that sometimes. Yeah. It really does. It really does feel like a little bit.
No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure at all. But I hope that's what next year looks like for me, is doing more trials, but also just feeling more comfortable in knowing that I can do this and that I'm good at it, and that just, or taking an expert that I didn't necessarily feel like I was ready for in my last trial. And
About a little voir dire, put that on the list.
Speaking Kellye's language.
never done that. I have never done because the states that I practice in, like, I have a lot of cases in South Carolina, and it's all judge conducted.
Yes, no attorney
which is
voir dire.
it's not even just judge conducted. It's like the judge is like, "Are you breathing? You're good." So it's terrifying. But yes, that's a perfect example. That's absolutely something on my list. Is I have to get up and do it, right? And
We say it all the time, right?
You
Fake
just have
it till you make it.
Yeah, oh my God, that's like my life motto. But so I hope that's what my next year looks like, is just more and getting more comfortable, refining my craft, trying new things, and just
growing.
yeah,
You're not
just
done
generally growing. Just
Yes.
my biggest fear in what I do with work, particularly how much I work, is just getting stagnant.
Yes.
Right? Just like getting to a point where either you feel like you've not necessarily peaked, but like you're maxed out, feeling like you're maxed out, wondering like where you go from here. What's the next step? How do I grow? Whether it's moving up the ladder at your firm or gaining a new skill. Like, my biggest fear is just standing still, doing the same thing over and over and over and over again.
It's like a bad dream.
It's like a bad dream. And I also worry that I won't care anymore at a certain point, right? Like, I'm just going to be going through the motions, and
I don't
doesn't
think
work for
that's
me.
your personality.
It doesn't
Yeah, I
work
don't
for me.
see
Not at
that
all.
in your
It doesn't.
picture. Plus, that's what J&J wants, and we cannot.
That
give
is what
to
J&J
them.
wants, and then I'll go spend more money at Target.
Yeah.
It's just really problematic.
I think no matter what it is, you will pivot.
Yeah.
Like, you'll pivot in some
I
direction.
hope so. I hope so.
We've talked about how hard trial is, and I'm
Yes.
a trial lawyer, and it's my
Yes.
favorite thing about being a lawyer. I just want more women to be trial
there's not
lawyers,
enough. I
right?
beg
There's
of
not
you,
enough. And
So
please.
tell us how great it is being in trial. Tell us, why you love it. Tell us, what you experienced to make you know that that's like your happy place.
I am obviously a little biased because I'm a woman, but I am convinced that women make better trial lawyers. You will not convince me otherwise.
Said it.
Because I just am convinced of it, right? Because women, I mean, there's the biology of it, right? Which is women generally are excellent multitaskers. Generally, our brains never shut off. Like all the stuff we've already talked about, we're used to balancing 5 different things, spinning 5 different plates at once and making sure that everybody's happy and taken care of. But then generally, naturally, we're great at that. But I also think there is I firmly believe female intuition is real. And I just think women, there are men who are great at this, but I think women naturally are able to relate more to people quickly, right? Like a jury full of strangers that you've never met, quickly and organically. And, there's most teachers are women, right? Like, and there's just an inherent trust, I feel like, comes with being a woman in trial. And like I said, I've worked with some fabulous male attorneys, but I just think that there's a special thing that women have that others just don't.
I think you're
And
onto something
there. I just really, it's easier for women to vibe with new people, like with people you've never, because that's what trial law is, right? Is you're getting a jury. Depending on what state you're in, it's 12 or whatever, but you're getting a bunch of people that you've never met, that you barely get to talk to, that don't get to know you, that if you see them in the hallway, you can't look at them or interact with them, right? And with what I do, you're asking them to give your client millions of dollars and like you, right? And, trust you. And there's all these books out there about, as a female trial attorney, there's so many more things that people focus in on, right?
What
than
are
they do
her
with the
nails
man.
look
What are
like?
her nails
What are
look
her
like? How
shoes?
tight is her skirt?
Yes.
Like
All the
how low,
things.
how cut is her top? All these things that women have to think about. But I just think being a trial lawyer as a woman is really, really special. And it's hard because work-life balance is a thing. And if you're trying cases, when you're, it just
time
doesn't,
stands
if you're
still,
in a
yeah.
trial, their work-life balance is not a thing. Like if somebody tries to tell you that they're trying a case and maintaining work-life balance, they're lying. It's
Or
just
they're not a very good lawyer.
or they're a terrible lawyer or a terrible mom. I don't know, but something is not right if they tell you they're in trouble. If a woman tells you she's in, anybody.
We say work-life integration. This is what we say.
I
think it's
rebranded.
bullshit.
I was going to say, I think it's work life.
Yep.
It really, it's.
I was waiting for you to say
I
Lisa
know.
doesn't curse.
Oh, you don't. Oh God.
She does
My
sometimes.
I do
favorite word
sometimes.
is the F word. So I'm
too.
like really struggling to
100%.
not curse.
Hey, I'm usually the only potty mouth, so it's okay. But you know, that just made me think of early in my career. I had this very old school kind of legendary trial lawyer just tell me how he would never hire a male jury consultant because women have so much better intuition. And I was like, for a second, I was like, is this a little sexist? I go, nope, I think it's true.
I think it's just true, right? I think it's just the truth. I mean, I that would honestly, my first reaction would be like, ew, but then I would take a minute and be like, oh no, he's just right. Like he's just right.
It's like a little reverse sexism.
It's a little reverse sexism, but like it's kind of true, right? I mean, like I would never hire a male jury consultant ever because it's just women you can vibe with people. The female intuition thing is real. And I think women in general tend to be better about reading non-social cues, right? Like body language, reading a room, like noticing.
It's a little bit more natural.
Just a little bit more because we're constantly, I think because we're so used to constantly being judged by everybody that we probably judge everybody else a little bit too, right? So like we may notice something like, oh, when that lawyer stands up, that juror in the pool looks away or like huffs a little bit or like just isn't in, just there's no vibe. Or the converse, oh, there really is a vibe, right? And that's happened where I've seen people do jury selection and they're like, oh, I think this person hated me. And I'm like, I don't think so. So, exactly. I mean, it feels a million times different when you're the one up there doing it because you can't pay attention. You can't really
you're
pay
thinking
attention
all
to
these
everything.
things,
That's why
but
you
you
hire a
can't-
jury consultant, right? But like, I wish there were more female trial attorneys.
Me too.
So give us
So badly.
to end on that. Give us some advice. Like if you're a woman and you're a young or older, however, if you're coming out and you want to be a trial lawyer, what are some of the things that you can do to just build
Stay
on
the
that dream?
course.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Exactly.
Oh God.
Don't have kids. Kids are overrated, right? I say don't have kids. Kids are overrated.
That's a little bit of a hot take. I mean, I don't have any, and it's something I've struggled with is making, like when I was a younger lawyer, and I knew I wanted to try cases, and I knew I wanted to move ahead no matter where I worked. I made a decision. I'm not going to have kids until I'm older. I'm just going to be one of those moms that if I have kids, I'm going to do it way later. And if you had asked me when I was in my early 30s if I wanted kids, I'd be like, absolutely not. I don't want to deal with it. I'll be a great aunt. I'll spoil
my
them
line.
rotten, but then I can give the baby back when I'm done with it. And, whatever. Now that I'm a little bit older, I kind of have a new perspective. I made a choice when I was younger. If this is what I want, I'm not going to be able to do this for a little bit. And I kind of struggled with that. So I think my best advice would be to just know it's hard to kind of know what's best for yourself, but just have faith that you know what's best for yourself. Because I remember when I was younger and I made that choice, I had some people being like, but you're 31, you don't want to have kids, and it's just like, no, I'm good. Like, thanks. So like I said, it changes as you get older and you get a little bit more points at your job and you get a new perspective. But I think the best advice I could have, and it sounds so cheesy and I can't believe I'm going to say it. It's just have trust in yourself that you know that whatever decision you're making is best for you. And that no matter who gives you advice or, you can take in what you want to take in from everybody, but trust your female intuition. Trust that you know what's best for yourself, especially when it comes to your career. Because when you're young, you got to take care of yourself. Yeah. So it's so cheesy. I can't believe I said it.
No, I love it. I love it. That's perfect.
Yeah, well, actually, just to close on that note, I think you nailed it because in the very beginning, you talked about what you wanted, you spoke it, you were ambitious, you were aggressive, and even if you were annoying, you still did it.
I'm confident I was annoying to
So
several people.
honestly, honestly, your answer at the end was, listen to yourself.
You may hate me,
and
but I'm going to get there.
Be authentic,
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Rachel, I am so glad you came on today. It's so fun. Thank you for scooting across town.
Sorry I got lost. I drove around the block like 5 times.
We're just happy to have
I would
you.
get lost in my own driveway, so I have a terrible sense of direction. So I did put it in GPS. It was a hot mess, but...
Well, I'll just say, if anyone has any questions, email us at hello@ladiesinlaw.com. Comment below. We will funnel everything to Rachel. And if you want her on another time, I think we could take this conversation again and circle around the wagons sometime next year, see how her year's going.
Oh, gosh. Happy to come back. Thanks
Way,
for having me.
way to be a badass trial lawyer.
God.
Good job. Keep it up.
Yeah,
Keep
yeah.
it up. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of Ladies in Law. We hope you're walking away inspired and ready to shake things up in law and business. Don't forget to hit subscribe and let us know what you think. Spread the word and share this podcast with your network. Follow us on socials for all the behind-the-scenes fun and sneak peeks of upcoming episodes. Until next time, keep rocking it, keep breaking the mold, and as always, keep aspiring to inspire.